Gary's Picks event for investors and startups. My name is Joel Rosenberg, Director of Business Development and Strategy for VC Task Force. VC Task Force is an organization where the venture community comes together to address critical issues, provide workshops, and other events for the benefit of the venture and entrepreneurial communities. VC Task Force provides access to an extensive ecosystem of VCs, corporate VCs, and angel investors. You may ask questions anytime during the event, and time permitting, they will be answered live after today's interview. It is my pleasure to welcome Gary's Picks host, Gary Fowler. Gary is CEO and co-founder of GSD Venture Studios, an award-winning growth stage AI venture studio. Gary is also co-founder of the award-winning AI startup Yva.ai, as well as the investment firm DY Investments. Today, Gary will be interviewing special guest Gerald Konwea, founder and CEO of SpottR. Gerald is an 11-plus year e-commerce veteran, including a partnership with state government in Nigeria for SME growth hacks and organization of international trade affairs. He has also worked with the economic community of West African states to develop local content. SpottR uses strong AI powered by Google Maps, cryptocurrency, and APIs to address Africa's fragmented e-commerce ecosystem so that users can find anything they want within 2 minutes of thinking about it, and while having it delivered twice as fast. SpottR is incorporated in Nigeria, which is also their primary market and sandbox. Take it away, Gary.
Great to be here, Joel. Great to see Gerald and June. Great to see you also. So my name's Gary Fowler. As Joel said, I'm a serial entrepreneur. I've done 17 companies, 2 unicorns, original management team at Click Software, sold to Salesforce for $1.35 billion. About 26 months ago, and also Yva.ai, the AI HR tech company, co-founded with Dr. David Yang. It's one of the top AI HR tech companies in the world. And GSD Venture Studios, premier AI quantum venture studio. In fact, that's where I first heard about Gerald. So Gerald, it's great to have you. We were, the flag had raised, and I said, this is an incredible company, an incredible individual behind SpottR. And SpottR is a Nigerian-based company, as Joel said. Gerald's got an incredible amount of expertise from Lincoln University in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, all the way to Clickit and SpottR, working as an IT analyst, just a really robust. In fact, I must say, Gerald, you're the first person in a long time that I've seen that has 5 pages on LinkedIn. So you got a robust background, I got to tell you. And, it's great to be here. And as you know, at GSD, we're really focused on curating companies from around the world, in particular, the African continent, because with 1.2 billion people and a burgeoning economy, it's just really, really ready to take off. So great to have you here today on the show, Gerald.
Thank you very much, Gary.
So listen, tell me a little about it. So I actually went to Lock Haven University of Pennsylvania. So I remember Lincoln. And how did you go to Lincoln? What made you decide to say, I'm going to go to Lincoln University? That's the one I'm going to pick.
Right. So I was going to make a choice, decide where I was going to get my master's done. And the US was a natural pick for me because right from time, I was just fascinated about all the technologies and advancements that kept coming out from the United States. And so I spoke to an uncle of mine, right? So alongside my mom, when we were looking for, we're shortlisting universities, and he said, oh, wait a minute, like I work at Lincoln University, and I'm like, the same Lincoln University that Nnamdi Azikiwe graduated from? And he said, yes, and I'm like, that's where I'm going, right? Just for context, or for those who may not know, Nnamdi Azikiwe is the first president of Nigeria. And for a young man growing up, right, I read a lot of books about those who I'd like to, those whose life I'd like to live or be like, right, when I come of age. It would be a no-brainer that I would naturally want to pick university that I learned the first president of Nigeria attended. So the moment he said it, it was just a natural click, and I said, "That's where I'm going."
That's amazing. Well, that's a
Right.
great story. And so you went to Lincoln. When did you go back to Nigeria? What year did you go back?
It was in 2013. I came back January 2013, and I was just so eager to come back and to let all what I have in store just unleash them, right? Let it all out. So I ran out. I didn't even wait to execute my graduation. I just left. I just up and left, got in a flight, and came back to Nigeria.
Well, because there's so many incredible opportunities. So you come back to Nigeria, you've been the communications department manager, web manager. You worked for Nigerian National Petroleum before. Then you come back and you are the founder of Kilometer 51. What is Kilometer 51?
Kilometer 51 is a local content development initiative. And as a matter of fact, SpottR is actually or rightfully an offshoot of Kilometer 51, and I'll tell you the story. Very, very interesting. So I looked at it, and from my background, like from the introduction that Joel gave, you would see that I've transitioned I've hopped, between a number of ideas. And what I've done so far is to make sure I never really abandon an idea, right? So what I do is just build on top of it or layer on top of it. And while I was at Calabar, right, or in Calabar, right, partnered the Cross River State Government of Nigeria to execute an international trade fair, I figured that the state government at the time wasn't really committed to the project. And what I thought is, what if we take this up a notch, and instead of focusing on just one government, which would be the Nigerian government, let us get the Economic Community of West African States, which would be a collection of West African governments, and say, listen, Africa is not where it should be. And just like you said, it's an economy of 1.2 billion people and a lot of young persons. What if we look inwards, bring stakeholders to the table, and then plan for the future? So what I proposed was executing roadshows, executing events, community events, where we could interview stakeholders. Then now, assemble a portfolio of stakeholders who would act on what these conversations are, and then reference history, just so that we're able to identify those low-hanging fruits, right, that we could leverage to develop the continent. And so we plan to develop a 25-year economic blueprint, that we could say, hey, listen, we've actually engaged with the real community. Because I'll give you an instance, and I'm about done with the question, right? So in Africa or in Nigeria, the government is mostly accused about not knowing about the states or the status of the roads, because they are always in in the convoys. They live in the neighborhoods that they tar the roads from their house to the airport, and then they get to the airport, they fly across the bad roads, get to their destination, and fly back. So they really do not know exactly what the conditions of these roads are. So when I was designing Kilometer 51, I said, let us interview the real people on the ground, then take all that answers to the policymakers and tell them, since you won't be on the road, this is what the road looks like. And then we needed to get an application, we needed to bring in tech. So that is where SpottR comes in. So we needed to aggregate data, right? Consumer data. And we know that trade is as old as human life. So we said, if we are able to build a product that can capture transactions that happen daily on the go, and that can learn, like you said, you met me because of AI, I met you because of AI, that could learn about consumer behavior on the go and make recommendations and really know who and what they are, we can use that data would be enough for us to, and remember, data is malleable. We can use that data to actually go ahead to figure out how to develop the continent from inside. That is why it's local content development. So, but for the name Kilometer 51, it was actually picked off of Area 51, right? Which the whole world doesn't even really know. I'm sure most Americans cannot really say if Area 51 is an actual location. So, Kilometer 51. I wanted to give you a whole background. But anyway, Kilometer 51 is just saying there is no length and breadth of the continent, right? Yeah. We are just trying to, and there's no place that will be favored over another, right?
Right.
So we're trying to do it for the continent and solve the problem, right? So kilometer is literally for length and breadth. So we'll crisscross the continent on the road, by air, whatever it takes. And then, there is no particular place that we favored over the rest. Let's build the whole continent. So that's what it is.
No, that's really cool. So, okay, so now let's move on to SpottR. So, okay, what made you decide to set up SpottR? Where do you see the problem? Where do you see the opportunity? What's happening with it?
Right. So I said, SpottR was I thought about SpottR while I was on the Kilometer 51 project, and I'm like, as we continue to build it as an independent project, we thought about it and said, wait a minute, right? E-commerce on the continent actually has or is suffering from a number of problems, and this is consistent with where you see opportunity. There is obviously an underlying pain point or problem, but in Africa, it is actually deeper. The problems with e-commerce as compared to the rest of the world. I mean, for so many other things, categories anyway, but in Africa, e-commerce suffers from the problem of discoverability. It's hard to find the products that you really want to consume. And then even when you find it, for most Africans, they really won't be able to afford it. And this is true for the rest of the world anyway. The only difference is the rest of the world found a way to come up with credit schemes, buy now, pay later options, right? So that people can, if you want to buy an iPhone that is worth $1,000, you can pay just $200 down payment. And that is what SpottR is saying, that if we are able to solve this innovatively, then we will be on our way to actually helping a lot of Africans afford the products and services that they really want. And then lastly, there is a problem with logistics. So even when you find and you can buy, how do you move the items from point A to point B? So there's been a lot of attempts by e-commerce players to solve logistics. And my argument has been, why don't you focus on helping people find the products and the match, that they really want, and helping them afford it, while you just plug into or let the logistics guys who are actually solving or trying to crack the code for logistics on the continent, plug into your system, so that the cost is heavy for you, the cost burden is heavy for you as the e-commerce firm, and then you can focus on what your core is while the logistics guys focus on it. So this is what we thought about and said, okay, you know what, while we're trying to gather trade data and make sense of consumer behavior on the continent, we needed to be deliberate about the SpottR strategy, and that is what we figured, that is the approach we figured would work best for us.
Yeah, so I mean, there's burgeoning opportunities. I was on a panel this morning on Africa Rising and the incredible opportunities in fintech, right? Most people don't realize, Gerald, that in Nigeria, you have about 205 or 206 million people, something around there, and growing. I mean, it's big. These are not small markets. People don't get it. There's incredible opportunity. And the interesting thing is, if you look at it, you don't have the infrastructural challenges that places like the US have, because you're building it new. So using these types of technologies to be able to make it easier, more accessible, and faster is really incredible. So, hats off to you. So what's SpottR doing today? And what are you looking for?
SpottR actually just concluded its ICO, its coin offering, because we are using cryptocurrency to offer or to actually to offer credits to consumers, and then we thought to actually have what they call it, issue our own cryptocurrency, and we just concluded the crypto offering, and it was impressive for an African project. So where we are now is actually focusing on developing, what they call it, releasing our version 1, because what we have out in the market is the MVP. So we want to send out our version 1. As a matter of fact, that should be published in about 2 or 3 weeks from now, by the end of the month of April. We should have that out in the market, and we'll begin the process of onboarding the FMCGs, the fast-moving consumer manufacturers, good manufacturers, as well as the everyday vendors who kind of sort of found a way to, and Africans are actually very thick-skinned, right? So they continue to get these blows left, right, and center, right? Government not really being government, and we just find a way. I tell people that Africans are selling on WhatsApp and on Twitter instead of actually using it for social media, and it's actually sad. It's not a very convenient thing to watch, in as much as most of these platforms are also innovating for or adapting for commerce, right? But this shouldn't be the natural place. I don't want to be chatting my mom or my grandmom or trying to get a scoop on the trending topic, and what is in my face are vendors who are just advertising and littering my timeline with ads on products, right? So we want to, where we are now is to onboard all these small vendors and the big guys, so that, like SpottR says, we want you to be able to find the item that you want within 2 minutes of thinking about it. And executing SpottR is actually very, very deliberate, right? And I know you are big on AI, but SpottR is actually trying to be what the social commerce platforms are to humans, right? We are building a product that will be addictive, so that when you wake up, you are thinking about SpottR, you pick up your phone. If you go to 3 apps, we are guessing that SpottR should be one of them. And if you think of buying an iPhone, we're saying you should think of going to SpottR.
No,
So
I think it's great. And one of the things, it's said that there are 700 million active phone users. Is that just in the African continent, or where is it out of the 1.2 billion? One of the statistics that you have, is that that's Africa, just Africa, yeah?
Yes, that's Africa.
But it's explosively growing, correct?
Mm-hmm. Right.
And then, you're right. I mean, it's connecting the dots. The good news about entrepreneurship, if people will find a way, right? So what you're doing, I don't think it's a bad thing that you're doing it, because if you got Facebook and Twitter or wherever, but if you look at wherever you can reach your audience. So, SpottR coming in and offering that type of capability to be able to connect the dots is really amazing. So you've got geolocation AI to be able to help users find businesses and goods and services to make their lives easier, essentially.
Right.
So, and then I like the thing, the SpottR Oracle crunches the data from that and really helps to be able to use it for business optimization. Tell me a little bit about it. How is it using it for business optimization?
So I mean, what we've done is, I like to tell people that what we are doing and what we've done is really not out of this world. It's been done by a number of persons. Matter of fact, some of the solutions are really off the shelf. The SpottR Oracle, the much I know is, when you are developing an Oracle product, right? If you develop an Oracle product, right, depending on the suit, you would probably if you get to the point of utilization for where we are going, you probably name it, the SpottR Oracle or the GSD Oracle and stuff like that. So we want, because we know we would be in people's lives and faces almost every second of the day. We do not want to leave all that data to waste, right? And so we want to use all that data to help, consumers. Like I said, we want people to be able to find goods and services within 2 minutes of thinking about it. That means we would have studied your behavior over time, your pattern over time, the goods that you're looking at. And like I said, this is stuff that is being done by almost every application, e-commerce or social commerce platform out there, right? So we want to use all that data now, as opposed to what is happening traditionally with other e-commerce platforms. Now I want to present that data to the businesses on the go, right? So that they know who their customers are, they know how to present better offerings, they know how to target and adjust their promotions and all of that stuff, right? So that a user, when you go in your dashboard, and you wouldn't see this in an Amazon, for instance, or on a Jumia, for instance, you go in your dashboard, you would see data that compares the transactions you've made, how your competition is faring, how the industry is doing, what time your users are transacting, why they are transacting, why they are actually getting all these other products and all of that. Now, obviously, right, these things are meant to, why they're also meant to optimize the businesses, right? It's
Right.
also going to give us, bring revenue for us as a company, because all this information would make the business more excited to use SpottR to execute some ads or reach their customers and all of that stuff. But in the end, if the consumers are getting more satisfied, it is because we've provided the data that has helped the businesses to optimize to serve the consumers better.
No, that's great. So, I mean, I like the idea. I like the the ability to be able to really get closer to those, to understand the consumers better. So, and it's for small to medium businesses, correct, today?
Yes.
And so, all right, so, and we call it now social e-commerce ecosystem, correct?
Yes,
No,
that's correct.
that's beautiful. I love it. I love it. So tell me about the SpottR native token. So in terms of like use cases, just if you could drill down a little bit, it'd be interesting for our audience.
Okay. So like I said, we introduced the click token, which would be the SpottR native cryptocurrency, so that we'll be able to offer credits and loans to our consumers. Now in Africa, there is traditional finance institutions would ask you for a collateral or a paying job, right? All these are to satisfy the credit checks. Now, but if we're looking at the employment data or the unemployment data, whichever one you're looking at, we see that this makes no sense, because if you are saying you want people to be employed before you give them loans, and you're looking and you're seeing that many of these people are actually not employed, how do they get the jobs, right? So we are saying that Africa needs to innovate. We need to which would be now the entrepreneurs like myself, think of ways, because you can't really blame the banks. They are regulated, right? Banking around the world is heavily regulated. So the banks cannot, a GT Bank or a Zenith Bank cannot go against the Central Bank of Nigeria, right? So now there's cryptocurrency, right, which is about which is also getting a lot of attention worldwide, even from the regulators. But cryptocurrency still affords us to be very innovative, right? Especially because no one individual can pull the plug. So we are saying, if you have if you want to buy an item of $1,000 or let me use naira, right, because I'm Nigerian, right? So if you want to buy an item of 1,000 naira, SpottR is saying you need to have an equity contribution in click tokens, right? And that will probably be 1/5 or 1/4 of the amount you need in cash. Now, cryptocurrency is not commonplace. So
and do you hold that as collateral? Is that what that's coming in as collateral?
Yes, we hold that as collateral, right? Now, cryptocurrency is not commonplace, that you can just walk into a shop, and that is what SpottR is trying to do anyway. We think we're going to be the biggest aggregator of merchants that accept crypto, but until we get there, and if we do get there, we know that a lot of merchants will still prefer cash, because a lot of people are still skeptical about cryptocurrency. So it means you will still need cash for most of your transactions. Now, you need 1,000 naira, but you do not have 1,000 naira. We can give you the 1,000 naira, but you need to give us collateral. Now, but it is easy collateral, right? So we're not asking you to bring a car or a house or things that you don't have, or a job. Give us an equity contribution, which will collateralize. Then make the payment to the vendor or the merchant. Now, it will now be for you to now continue to pay us back, the capital and the interest, over time, right? And then clear your loan, and then the collateral will now be unfrozen and issued back to you. Now, we know that, if we do this, a lot more Africans will be able to, afford to make purchases, whether online or offline. Now, people are confused as to why or how we are doing this. Now, what I tell people is, basic economics says the more there's a demand for a product that is either stagnant or that continues to shrink in supply, it means the value will go up, right? Now, our argument is, if you look at the African credit market, it stands at 16% ratio of loan to GDP, right? That is a huge opportunity. That's a huge market, right? Credit market. Now, we are saying, if all of these persons can access cheap loans, like the SpottR loans, very cheap at 3.5% per annum, 5% per annum, single digits. If they know that SpottR is offering this,
that's really cheap. That's a lot cheaper than a credit card.
Right.
A lot cheaper, right? And then, can I ask you, Gerald, I want to ask you a question. So what happens if they don't repay? What happens to their collateral? You take the collateral, but how do you collect the debt?
Right. So we liquidate the tokens. Now, the argument is all that demand will continue to act on the token. Now, our supply is actually fixed, And then as people continue to hold these tokens to collect loans or collateralize it to collect loans, it means the supply actually continues to shrink. And this is where economics come in. So all that demand will continue to act on the value of the token, so that if you actually do not pay back your
you make more money, your values
we'll probably make more money, exactly.
Well, you
We'll
don't
make
want to
more money.
talk about that too loud because everybody's going to say, "Why do I pay?" You can make the tokens go back.
Well, now
You're gonna be rich either way.
right, exactly. I would be here.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. And
Right.
so, we're coming up. We got about 5 minutes left. I want to, we see a lot of opportunities, and obviously, you went to school in the U.S. And spent a bit of time here. What's your forecast for the next couple of years in Nigeria and the African continent? What do you see happening? What's hot right now from your perspective? And we'll have a lot of investors and a lot of startups watch the show. Can you give them some pointers on where to look?
To be very honest, I think innovation will force the hand of regulators on the African continent. And while Africa has continued to act like opposition, right? So those from outside Africa might see Africa as being hostile to innovation. I like to argue that innovation would eventually force their hands, right? A number of these banks are beginning to have meetings internally on crypto strategies, right? A number of them are beginning to think about blockchain and how to explore the benefits that come with it. Now, these are players in a heavily regulated sector. And like we said, crypto, for instance, is not something a person can just switch off or switch on. One person cannot make that decision. And we all know that those who have even gotten cryptocurrency to where it is, right, are those that actually influence decision making around the globe. So I tell African entrepreneurs and innovators, just hang on. Innovation is going to force the hand of regulators so that they would either, there is a thing they say, if you can't beat them, you join them. I think regulation in Africa will get to the point where they can't beat, regulators can't beat innovation and they have to just join in. So yes, so that's hope in the horizon. I'm thinking in the next 3 to 5 years, not even up to, it's not a long-term forecast, it's like a short to medium-term forecast or medium to long-term forecast.
No, that's great. And, as I said earlier, at GSD, we see that, intellectual capacity is evenly spread around the world, but opportunities aren't. Using Silicon Valley, where Joel and June are located, and our office is located, really gives companies around the world visibility that is unsurpassed. I've been there for myself over 34 years. Can you, it's hard to believe now, but it's 17 companies later. Mm-hmm. And the access is incredible. So, we see Nigeria, we see the African continent. I don't know if I mentioned it, but I'm 25% North African myself. My grandmother's from Egypt. And so I remember growing up as a kid when she would speak Arabic and Greek to me. I thought it was normal. I was like, oh, well, that's great. But I'd talk to my friends and say, what are you talking about? I understood quickly there was something wrong. Anyhow, but I see a great opportunity. We're very, very excited. I know at the VC Task Force to be able to support and curate and help African startups. We see the future. We see that, so many young people in Africa are really looking at how they can make a better life, just like everywhere else, how they can be able to provide for the family, and more importantly, how they can make a dent in the universe like you are. So I just want to say hats off to you, Gerald. We've known each other for a few months. You're doing extraordinary things. We need to keep it moving forward. So investors, they got a great company, partners, speak to Gerald. Gerald, how can they get a hold of you? What's the best way to get in touch with you?
I'm on Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook. And my handle is the same throughout, Mr. Gerald, MISTAGERALD. So I spelled out Mr., but this with an A at the end. And by the way, we're raising $200,000. I know you asked the question, but I didn't say it, so I missed it. So yeah, we're raising.
So they're raising $200,000. So investors, impact investors, VCs, family offices. Joe's got a great company. He's doing the right kind of stuff. Reach out to him. He can help. So thank you. I'd like to also thank June, Joel, and the entire VC Task Force team for making Gary's Picks possible one more time. Look forward to our next show. Thanks, Joel. Thanks, June. And that's it. Joel?
Thank you, guys. Gary, thank you for the excellent interview, and Gerald, very, very interesting and timely information. This is our audience is going to be very excited about what you're doing, and I think it's great. And thank you both for the excellent opportunity to get in front of our audience. Gary, we look forward to having you back in 2 weeks on the 28th for our next Gary's Picks event. Until then, everybody stay healthy, happy, and we'll see you then. All right.
Bye-bye, everybody. Thanks for joining. Bye-bye. Thanks, Joe.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, June. Thanks, Joe. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Joel.